Welcome to the Daily Dharma, a gentle podcast where we read a philosophical story every week and reflect on how it relates to everyday life. Our focus is to use Buddhist philosophy to understand the complexity of modern life and find achievable and accessible pathways to peace and happiness. Hi everyone, welcome to the Daily Dharma. In this episode, we'll be talking about the ecosystem of the mind, what it is, and how we can become more aware of what's in our ecosystem and how it's affecting us. The story that we'll be reflecting on this theme is called Clean Spaces, Clean Mind, and it comes from the book Zen Stories with Master Seiji by Daiki Shimada. Here is how the story goes. Master Seiji, with a dustpan in one hand and a brush in the other, was tidying up his house when his neighbor, who had earlier offered her assistance, began helping him. The house, already well kept, seemed to come alive with their joint efforts, the task at hand turning into an opportunity for connection. "Why do you clean so much, Seiji?" the neighbor asked, breaking the comfortable silence. "Your house always seems so spotless." "After years in the temple, the act of cleaning has become a form of meditation for me," Seiji replied, setting aside the brush to straighten a few books. "It reflects the mind's state. A clean space fosters peace and clarity, much like a serene mind." She paused her sweeping, considering his words of wisdom. Seiji continued. "It seemed tedious at first, but it taught me to find joy in the present moment, to be mindful with every sweep." As they finished, Seiji looked around the tidy room and then at his neighbor with genuine appreciation. "Thank you for your help today. It's always a joy to share the space and its peace with others." The neighbor smiled, nodding in acknowledgement of Seiji's thanks. This story is a very short one, but what I find is it is a healthy and very much needed reminder of how the spaces around us, the spaces of our minds, are very much affecting how we feel. And what I like to remember sometimes is how we feel is a culmination of many different factors. So our social media and digital consumption is one ingredient. Then the conversations and interactions we have with even people on the phone, our friends, our family, our workplace, our coworkers. All of these interactions come together to form that final feeling of, how am I doing today? And when we realize that our mind is not just one input coming into another input and forming an emotion, but rather it's a culmination of so many different factors in our lives that are mixing together and essentially arriving at one cumulative point of feeling and experience, we realize that that is also the same way by which we can positively influence our ecosystem. And for me recently, especially with all of the negativity in the world, it kind of came to a breaking point where I realized yet again that I have to limit my consumption of media that talks about really dark and difficult things. And the thing is that, especially for those of us who care deeply about the world, wanting to see this media doesn't come from a bad place. We want to know and we want to be informed as a way of acknowledging and validating the pain of others. But if we start to do this too much, we will see there's a change in how we feel about our lives. And essentially yesterday, in a point of deep stress, because I am also just handling a lot of assignments at school and a lot is happening at once, some tears came out. And that's when I realized, oh, okay, now I am definitely watching, seeing, hearing too much, and my ecosystem is overwhelmed, and it's time to bring in a little bit more balance to my own mind's ecosystem. And so I chose to do some exercise and just avoid screens for a few hours just to cleanse my mind of that messaging, that way of thinking. And this definitely helped calm me down and feel better because I wasn't obligated to immediately feel this deep sadness. I was able to just sit as I am and not have to validate or examine something else for a change. And I think sometimes we don't realize the amount of labor it takes to be consuming information. We are at a point where we recognize that simply existing takes emotional labor because we have to process what happens to us and learn to accept things as they are, and that is labor. But then there's also the labor of what we give to others, which is a joyful form of labor. But if we do that too much as well, we overwhelm and exhaust our ecosystem. And then also there is the labor of consuming content that is very disturbing and also very sad. When we watch these things, now our heart, mind, and spirit have to work together to get us back to that point of equilibrium after experiencing this hurt. So it's not the same, but I think it is a much smaller and lesser form of what we can consider a trauma. When something bad happens, such something as severe as a trauma, now every single resource in your body, in your mind, in your intellect has to come together to now compensate and help you heal from the pain that you've gone through. And in the same way, when we are watching these tiny videos over and over and over again, and they are pushing the same message about the darkness of the world, the darkness of others, how humanity is going in a dark direction, that absolutely overwhelms the ecosystem. And it did with me. And that was when I realized I needed to change my habits again. I need to reset my ecosystem, and I need to go back to the more nurturing and healing habits, such as simply coloring or exercising, or even just enjoying the sunset, which after a long time, I was able to appreciate yesterday. And all in all, it's not that the ecosystem is ever doomed or destroyed within ourselves. It's a living, breathing thing, just like the ecosystems in the world around us. If something is going wrong, we always have that opportunity to adjust. And we have so much control to change what's going on within our own lives, within our own minds, the choices we make, with the things we do every day. And sometimes, and of course, change is hard, very hard, especially if these habits are ingrained in us after many years. But that's where we really need to start small. And something as small as even doing a 10-second meditation, a 10-second reflection of loving kindness can be deeply impactful and actually make a change in how you start to feel and see yourself. And the same goes for our digital media consumption, The same goes for the conversations and interactions we have with people. When we start to gently exert a sense of intentional direction, for example, I want to talk about the good things in our lives. I want to watch things about people healing from difficulty rather than experiencing deep trauma and difficulty. When you start to make these intentional decisions and how we do things, it deeply benefits our ecosystem, because now we're bringing elements into the ecosystem of the mind that are positive, healing, and nurturing, that instead of giving us more reasons to despair, give us more reasons to feel inspired and to feel courageous and resilient in the face of difficulty. And that all goes to show that ultimately everything about the mind, how we feel, is deeply changeable. And this is very important to remember, especially if we have been feeling a certain negative way for a long time. It is always changeable. And sometimes the beginning of that change is a small, gentle, but intentional adjustment in the right direction. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. May you have a beautiful, safe, and joyful week ahead of you. If you have any thoughts or feelings or questions you'd like to share, please email me anytime at dailydharmapodcast@gmail.com. Until next week.